Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are turning our attention to the specific, chaotic mind of a kindergartner to prove, once again, that the most complex psychological lessons often come wrapped in, well, very simple covers.
Yeah, we're moving far beyond general self-help and diving into a foundational text of modern childhood.
We are a story about fear, logic, peer influence, and one very, very smelly picture.
That's right. Our subject today is Junie B. Jones Has a Monster Under Her Bed, which is the 8th book in the series by Barbara Park.
And on the surface, it's just a funny book about a kid's bedtime anxiety.
It is. But for us, it's this incredibly detailed, fascinating case study in how fear is socially transmitted, how adult rationalizations completely fail,
Oh, they fail spectacularly.
and how a unique blend of shame and creativity ultimately becomes the most effective coping mechanism.
Our mission today is not just to summarize the plot. I mean, you can read the book for that.
Of course.
Our mission is to really dissect the exact narrative architecture of anxiety. We're going to trace the fear from its surprising origins in social pressure.
School picture day, of all things.
Exactly. All the way through its escalation when adult logic is systematically defeated, and then finally to its resolution when Junie B finds a way to weaponize her own vulnerability.
We've got our source here, which in this case is the text itself, and we're going to follow the precise, almost clinical sequence of events that builds this central terror.
It starts as a simple fear, right? An imaginary monster.
It does, but it quickly morphs into a fear of social embarrassment, a fear of parental disappointment, and I think most importantly, this intense, visceral fear of the one physical proof of the monster's nightly visit.
The drool stain on the pillow.
The drool stain. The smoking gun.
Okay, so let's unpack this starting point. Before we can even get to the monster, we have to establish the intense, high-stakes social arena of kindergarten.
And the identity of our protagonist. She's Junie B. Jones, afternoon kindergarten.
And the B, which stands for Beatrice, is a name she absolutely wants nothing to do with.
Right, and that identity detail is critical. This entire first section is about external authoritative forces trying to impose definitions and expectations on her.
She doesn't like her name, so she asserts her own identity, just B.
Exactly. But she has no control over the first major force she faces, the tyranny of school pictures.
And she frames this event with this, incredible cynicism for a 5-year-old. She sees it as a financial and emotional transaction, or a racket.
Yeah, she says her mother has to buy them, or else you will get your feelings hurt. It's this perfect articulation of a forced performance.
A performance-linking appearance, compliance, and then this guaranteed emotional obligation on the part of the parent.
It's social capitalism, distilled for the kindergarten market. You have to conform, you have to look good, and your parents have to pay, or you suffer emotional consequences.
So given that context of mandatory performance, Junie B's reaction is pure, immediate rebellion.
And it comes through in her clothes and her own personal mythology.
Right. She's supposed to wear her bestest dress, but her version of that involves a brand new dress with a dinosaur on it.
Which she has personally named Tyrannosaurus Dottie.
It's this perfect assertion of self-definition over, prescribed prettiness.
And this choice brings her into direct and immediate conflict with the photographer, whom she calls the Cheese Man.
A very accurate name.
The primary authority figure controlling the process. When she proudly identifies her dinosaur as Dottie, he corrects her. He says, that's a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
And she has a counter-argument that is absolutely specific and logical to her. He explains basically that he's confusing gender.
Right. Rex is the boy, Dottie is the girl. She's standing firm on her personal knowledge, refusing to accept the, standardized, impersonal version of the world he's giving her.
This is the first crack, really, in her belief system. Adult authority figures are supposed to be sources of truth, but he's just dismissing her unique knowledge about Dottie.
And then what follows is her confusion over the command to smile. The cheese man tells her to say cheese because it makes you smile.
And this is where she grounds this abstract social ritual in the physical reality of lunch.
It's so good. She says, not me. Cheese doesn't make me smile because sometimes I eat a cheese sandwich for lunch and I don't even giggle when I swallow that thing.
It's a literal interpretation that just completely dismantles the adult social contract. She's demanding that the ritual have a rational purpose.
If cheese doesn't make you happy when you eat it, why would saying the word make you happy? The logic fails, so she stalls. She gets preoccupied with her own physical performance.
Specifically worrying about her eyes.
Yeah, she's worried she'll end up looking like her grandpa Frank Miller, who has one eye open and one eye closed in all his pictures.
So while she's demonstrating this awkward, distracted face she's trying to avoid.
The cheese man, who is just completely exasperated by her refusal to conform, snaps the picture.
That moment is so crucial. The picture is taken when her mouth is wide open, resulting in the image she later describes.
As looking like she smelled stink.
Exactly. This is her first major exposure to social humiliation, and it's imposed by an adult. She has been branded visually inadequate just before the whole class picture.
And the scene then gives us the necessary contrast. The perfect social performer, Lucille.
Oh, Lucille.
Junie B's rival in kindergarten conformity. She shows up with a blue satin ribbon meant to perfectly complement the robin's egg blue with just a hint of lavender in her eyes.
Lucille understands her performance perfectly. She sees the camera as her friend.
She sees modeling as her future, and she's so over the top with her compliance, singing cheese, cheese, cheesy, cheese, cheese, that even the professional photographer,
Her cheese man himself,
tells her to knock it off.
even the authority figure, can't stand that level of compliance.
And Mrs., the teacher, gives the most telling adult commentary on this whole social spectacle.
What does she do?
She just rolls her eyes up at the ceiling during Lucille's performance. It's this silent recognition of the absurdity of the whole thing.
So you have Junie B standing in line, feeling utterly exposed,
Yeah.
physically inadequate, judged. She's a shorty kid.
She just failed the picture ritual. She's convinced she looks like she smelled something awful. She is in a heightened state of vulnerability.
And it is in that exact fragile emotional state, waiting for the class picture, that the external threat finds its perfect window for entry.
The picture day anxiety is just the kindling. The monster rumor is the match.
So we've established this stage of social pressure. But how does an external pressure point like standing in line for the class photo-weaponize an abstract fear?
It happens instantly, and it's facilitated by a classmate, Polly Allen Puffer.
The transition is seamless. Polly Allen Puffer is standing right next to Junie B. At first, he's talking about dinosaurs.
Which ties neatly into her Tyrannosaurus Dottie rebellion.
Right. But then he shifts the subject to monsters that can bite your head off.
And this is where the credibility is built. Polly Allen Puffer doesn't rely on some vague rumor. He relies on the ultimate authoritative source,
It's Big Brother,
who is in 7th grade.
the ultimate authority.
In the kindergarten hierarchy of knowledge, a 7th grader holds immense, undisputed intellectual authority. Their word instantly overrides any parental or teacher denial.
So Polly Allen Puffer asserts this universal truth. Everybody has a monster under their bed.
And what makes this rumor so terrifying is the specificity of the monster's tactics. It's not just a shadow, it has a whole routine.
A terrifying, customized routine.
It waits until the child is asleep, crawls up next to them, lies right there on the pillow, and then performs what the text calls the most terrifying thing.
It practices fitting the child's head in its mouth.
That level of detail, it transforms the fear from a generic boogeyman into this visceral, personalized threat to her existence.
It anchors the anxiety not in the dark, but in the most intimate space, the pillow, where she is most vulnerable and asleep.
But the real masterstroke comes with the physical evidence.
This is where it gets really brilliant.
The rumor isn't just a vague threat, it's anchored in forensic proof. The drool spot.
Barbara Park takes this completely mundane physiological reality, a little drool on the pillow, and just completely repurposes it.
Suddenly, that damp patch isn't a sign of deep sleep. It's a terrifying calling card. It's proof that the nightly attack practice actually happened.
That is psychologically brilliant because it makes the threat real and unavoidable.
And then Polly Allen Puffer uses this evidence to completely trap Junie B. He creates what you could call an existential double bind for a kindergartner.
He challenges her identity directly.
Right. He says, you don't drool on your pillow, do you? You're not a baby, are you?
Exactly. So if she denies the drool, she's denying the evidence and basically admitting she's an infant who has to prove she's mature.
But if she admits the drool, she's confirming she is a victim who has been practiced upon by a monster.
It's a perfect trap. The external pressure to prove she is not a baby forces her directly into the terrifying monster narrative, no matter what the truth is.
It's a perfect illustration of how fear uses peer shame as its lever.
So faced with this overwhelming evidence and peer pressure, Junie B tries to fall back on her ultimate external authority, her father.
She relays his denial. There's no such things as monsters.
And Polly Allen Puffer immediately dismantles parental authority with a cynicism you wouldn't expect from a kindergartner.
But which he learned from the seventh grader.
Of course. He says daddies have to say that so the kids will go to sleep and not bother them.
This redefines parental assurance not as protection, but as this elaborate lie aimed at preserving adult convenience.
Suddenly, the adult world is just full of these deceptive operational necessities.
And then he uses this new frame of reference to explain the final terrifying puzzle piece, adult sleeping arrangements.
He explains that mommies and daddies sleep together to protect each other from the monster.
Or else their heads might get chewed off.
The implication is massive. Not only are the monsters real, but the parents are terrified of them too.
Their co-sleeping, which Junie B probably just sees as normal, is now reinterpreted as a protective huddle against a shared deadly threat. The stakes have just been raised from a child's fear to a threat against the entire family unit.
And what is the immediate physical consequence of this massive wave of psychological terror hitting her while she is standing in line for a photo?
She executes the very thing she was trying to avoid earlier when she looked at the camera. She wrinkles up her nose, hangs out her tongue, and makes a sick face right before the class picture is taken.
The narrative explicitly links the fear to the humiliation. The monster threat translates immediately into a physical, embarrassing reaction.
Which is captured forever by the cheese man. The shame of the ugly picture and the terror of the drool monster are now one single fused anxiety.
The school day ends, but the anxiety doesn't just go home with her. It spirals into this obsessive need for external validation.
She's desperate to confirm her father's denial, retreating to her internal mantra, "There's no such things as monsters."
But notice the telling concession she makes, which shows her loss of faith in that parental authority.
What's that?
She whispers that daddy wouldn't even lie to me, probably.
Oh, that single word, probably, is the measure of doubt planted by the seventh grader's wisdom. She is fundamentally unsure if her father is protecting her or just lying for his own convenience.
This uncertainty drives her frantic quest for external affirmation, what we could call a desperate attempt at group therapy.
She focuses first on her best friend, Lucille. She repeatedly taps Lucille, begging her, "Just say right, okay? Just say monsters aren't real, and I won't even bother you anymore."
But Lucille can't give her the emotional support she needs because she's caught up in the tyranny of performance that we saw earlier.
Right. She's busy punting the letter G, and Junie B's desperate tapping makes her ruin her big G.
So the need for order and perfection in her work trumps the need for emotional empathy. Lucille just gets angry at the disruption, rejecting Junie B's fear.
So then she pivots to crybaby William.
Which shows how desperate she is. She's willing to seek confirmation from the lowest authority figure in the kindergarten ecosystem.
She follows him relentlessly, moving her chair across the floor to keep up the interrogation. "Just say right. Okay, William, just say there's not a monster under my bed."
And William's response is this beautiful depiction of complete social and psychological retreat. He doesn't argue.
He physically carries his chair across the floor to the very center of the room just to escape her intense need for affirmation.
He refuses to say right, probably because he is either too overwhelmed or maybe he believes the monster is real too.
So the failure of both peers, the conforming leader and the social outcast, is a critical moment. Junie B can't find validation, which only intensifies the fear.
And Mrs. the teacher just intervenes to enforce compliance, zooming Junie B's chair back to her table, completely oblivious to the monster crisis that has now been validated by social silence.
The crisis reaches its peak on the bus when she focuses on Grace. She's jiggling Grace, demanding she say right.
And Grace, finally, definitively explains why she can't provide the denial Junie B craves.
Because she believes a monster really might live under your bed.
And here is the genius twist that fundamentally reframes the entire problem. The invisible monster concept.
Grace's big sister, another layer of elevated peer authority, explained that monsters turn themselves invisible when you look at them.
Which is why, definitively, nobody ever sees them.
This is a devastating logical blow to every adult intervention possible. If you, the concerned parent, look under the bed and confirm there's no monster,
the child now has an irrefutable counter-argument. The adult sees non-existence. The child sees a sophisticated strategic threat.
the lack of empirical evidence is now proof of the monster's cunning. It's a perfect logical trap, isn't it?
It perfectly models a psychological defense mechanism you often see in adults, especially around high-stakes anxieties or even conspiracy theories.
Right. When the external world provides logic, The anxious mind just pivots to the invisible, undetectable mechanism.
And this logical leap from non-existence to strategic invisibility is completely convincing to Junie B. Her body reacts instantly.
Her throat gets dry and her stomach gets the shakies. She doesn't have an answer because the invisible theory is logically sound. She even says, "That makes sense, don't you think?"
She is emotionally and physically overwhelmed by a concept that defeats rational inquiry. She just looks out the window very upset.
So she arrives home not just with a fear, but with a fully articulated, self-validating framework for that fear.
And she is ready to test it against the adults in her life.
Hmm.
This entire section is just a masterclass in caregiver burnout and the systematic failure of different adult approaches to addressing this kind of fear.
The moment Junie B gets home, the anxiety just explodes into the domestic sphere.
She bursts in, shouting for Grandma Helen Miller, requiring an immediate hug, even suggesting Grandma should put her baby brother Ollie on the floor.
It shows the urgency and the level of disruption the fear is already causing in the family routine.
She initially tries this crude, emotional, cognitive behavioral therapy on herself. She runs around shouting during her happy feet popcorn dance.
I am not even thinking about the monster under my bed.
But by trying not to think about it, she instantly regrets mentioning it and confirms that the monster is very much still occupying her thoughts.
And the terror has become so personalized and physical. She looks down at her toes and says, "Oh no, oh no." Because piggy toes look just like little wiener sausages, I think.
Which ties back to the monster's predatory focus. If it practices biting heads, surely those vulnerable, tempting wiener sausage toes are next.
So Grandma Miller, with her pragmatic, logical soul, attempts the rational, empirical adult solution.
After Junie B screams, "Run, Helen! Run like the wind!"
Right, but Grandma ignores the panic and tries Daddy's big, authoritative flashlight under the bed, confirming the expected, "No monster, Junie B."
And the adult logic fails immediately.
Junie B's retort is instant and completely confident. "That proves it, Grandma. He turned himself invisible." The flashlight provides nothing but further evidence of the monster's sophistication.
This is why logic is useless against the invisible monster framework.
So Junie B then pivots from seeking logic to seeking violent, aggressive solutions. She asks Grandma what Mother will do.
And then, based on watching Mother's excellent performance doing that to a roach, which sounds like it was a truly thorough bashing, Junie B concludes that Mother will get the broom and bash the monster's head in.
This is a fascinating insight into childhood coping strategies. The desire for an aggressive, definitive physical solution mirroring a known successful adult action.
But Grandma Miller has reached her limit. She closes her eyes, calls Junie B a strange one, and the moment Mother comes home,
She proclaims, "I'm out of here." The fear has successfully exhausted the primary caregiver, forcing them to retreat.
So Mother attempts the classical parental assurance first. The rumor mongers don't know what they're talking about. Monsters are not real.
When that fails, Daddy enters with the distraction technique, hamburgers on the grill, and giving Junie B the flipper.
The distraction is initially successful, but Junie B can't help but integrate the tool into her reality. She uses the flipper to flip a rock, a flower, a dirt ball.
And the final chaotic straw, a dead lizard she finds in the driveway. This is Junie B taking the adult tool and immediately misapplying it through imaginative play.
And the tool is instantly revoked. Mother takes the flipper away because, as Junie B bitterly summarizes, "I am not old enough, that's why."
The adult attempt at diversion fails, leading only to further feelings of inadequacy and being misunderstood.
And then, the inevitable, most difficult confrontation comes at bedtime.
Junie B unleashes a sophisticated battery of avoidance tactics. She can't sleep because the monster hasn't been definitively killed.
She suggests sitting in the kitchen to watch Eyewitness News at 10, a high-stakes, real-world adult activity, or baking a lemon pie, which requires long-term commitment.
She is grasping at anything to avoid the bed.
And the parents are reaching their breaking point. The fear has now consumed their evening, their patience, and their ability to enforce routines.
The emotional and physical stress of caregiving for this irrational fear just explodes with the baby Ollie incident.
Junie B, seeking a safer sleeping arrangement, tiptoes to her baby brother's crib. In a truly remarkable logistical feat, she puts Ollie on the floor to make room and climbs right in.
She's seeking the safety of a smaller, more protected space, believing the crib walls and the high elevation will protect her.
Daddy, alerted by Ollie's screaming from the floor, finds Junie B warm and cozy in the crib, greeting him with his nervous, utterly false cheer. "Hello, how are you today?"
And Daddy's patience is now completely gone, replaced by pure, parental fatigue.
He returns her to her room, but the warning is now stripped of kindness. It's a strict absolute boundary. Do not get out of this bed one more time.
But this doesn't resolve the fear, only the behavior. So Daddy makes one final massive attempt at empirical proof.
The exhaustive search. He turns on the light and checks every possible location, not just under the bed, but the closet, the drawers, the trash can.
And hilariously, the crayon box. He needs to physically eliminate every single possibility of a hidden threat, even the nonsensical ones.
This exhaustive effort just underscores the desperation of the adult. He's trying to meet the child's irrational logic with overwhelming rational evidence.
He reiterates, no monster, Junie B. No monster anywhere. You're going to have to believe me. Monsters are not real.
But the futility of this is palpable. He's operating in the world of the visible. Junie B is operating in the world of the invisible.
His search, thorough as it is, only proves that the monster is highly skilled at hiding.
So she responds with her own final demands, which are all about physical security and comfort.
First, the tightly tucked-in sheets, a physical barrier so her wiener, sausage-like feet don't hang over. Second, the assembly of the 4 essential protective stuffed animals.
Teddy, Raggedy Ann named Ruth, Raggedy Andy named Larry, and Philip Johnny Bob, her inner security cabinet.
Daddy finally walks away, leaving the door open and the hall light on as a compromise. A small victory for the child's fear.
But Junie B knows she has lost the battle for co-sleeping or total parental presence. So she attempts one last, desperate maneuver.
Summoning her parents back through proxy demands.
She shouts, "Philip Johnny Bob wants a drink of water." When that fails, she tries again. Raggedy Ruth needs a Kleenex.
And when those urgent needs go unaddressed, the demands decrease in necessity. Raggedy Larry wants a cookie, but the parents, completely exhausted and burned out, do not return.
They have hit the parental wall, and Junie B is left to face the invisible threat alone. This resignation leads us to the middle of the night, which Junie B describes as my worstest night ever. It's a period of intense crisis where she tries to solve the monster problem herself.
With her available yet ultimately inadequate resources.
She explicitly states she didn't sleep any winks, which is profound. She had to keep her eyes open to maintain the monster's invisible state.
She is literally sacrificing the physiological need for sleep to keep the psychological threat at bay, confirming that the fear has become an active, exhausting process.
Her first attempt at self-defense is to mobilize her internal forces. She pulls out Philip Johnny Bob, the stuffed elephant.
Who offers a brave but entirely impractical promise. I will squirt water in the monster's face, plus I will stomple him with my giant elephant feet.
But Junie B is too sharp. She sees through the illusion and applies physical logic to the imaginary protector.
Right. She points out, you're not actually strong because you just have fluffy in you. Plus also, you can't really squirt water.
The emotional comfort offered by the stuffed animal is logically defeated by the realization of its physical limitations against an invisible, head-chewing foe.
So the next offender is Tickle the dog, who runs into the room.
Initially mistaken for monster feet, causing her to panic briefly, but she quickly welcomes him to sleep on her pillow for protection.
But Tickle the dog is not a controlled weapon. He is chaos unleashed in the bedroom. He runs under the sheets, chews Raggedy Larry's red hair, and shakes Philip Johnny Bob by the trunk.
So she's forced to push her supposed protector off the bed. The introduction of a physical, real-world entity only resulted in more domestic disruption and failure.
And the sheets, which Daddy had tucked in so tightly as a defensive measure, are now loose. Raggedy Ruth falls out.
And Junie B can't retrieve her because she's paralyzed by fear. She believes the monster will grab my hand and pull me right under the bed. The fear successfully prevents her from taking necessary action.
This paralysis culminates in the king-sized escape.
She coordinates a strategic run for it with her stuffed friends to Mother and Daddy's bed, the ultimate symbol of safety and combined parental protection.
She crawls under the covers, trying to be unnoticed.
But the adult sanctuary is immediately compromised. Mother rolls right over on Philip Johnny Bob's trunk, waking her up.
And the mother's response is the final, chilling, whispered warning delivered through closed teeth. Do.not.get.f.bed.1.more.time.
That's the moment where the parental warning becomes scarier than the monster.
She realizes she has exhausted all safe avenues of escape and disobedience. She stays put, resigned, and utterly terrified.
So the next day, she is pooped and tired. And Grace, her informant, offers a new, bureaucratic, mechanical solution.
The flatso monster theory.
Right. Grace explains her mother got rid of the monster by sucking it up in a vacuum cleaner, putting the bag in the trash compactor and squishing the monster into a flat zone.
This solution appeals to Junie B because it involves definitive action and mechanical annihilation. She runs home, demanding the procedure be followed.
And Grandma Miller, being a good sport, despite her previous exhaustion, agrees to vacuum under the bed.
But a technical deficiency halts the process. Their house doesn't have a trash compactor.
And the threat remains because the precise bureaucratic steps of fear eradication must be followed, and the final step, compaction, was skipped.
This is a beautiful piece of comedic analysis by Barbara Park. The threat persists because the protocol wasn't followed perfectly. Junie B worries the monster will leak out and float in the air back to her room.
So mechanical intervention has failed due to logistics.
And Grandma Miller, reaching her absolute limit of patience and rational action, resorts to dramatic improvisation. She takes the vacuum bag, puts it on the driveway,
Gets in her car.
and backed up over that thing with her tires. She screams triumphantly, now he's a flatso.
This is the parent resorting to violence and spectacle when logic has failed. But even the vehicular annihilation of the monster fails.
Because Junie B observes the technical deficiency. A car is not a trash compactor. The psychological vulnerability remains open. The solution has to be precise or it doesn't count.
So the physical manifestations of the monster then reassert themselves. Snarlies, snorries, snufflies, and droolies, which Mother just dismisses as her imagination.
She tries to reframe Junie B's elaborate fear structure as a gift, a way of minimizing the threat by praising the creativity that built it.
But the ultimate proof of the monster's nightly victory comes when Junie B accidentally sleeps too much and finds actual drool on her pillow.
She screams, running into her parents' room and showing them the definitive evidence that the practice attacks have continued.
And this is the critical, final adult intervention, resolving the core conflict by decoupling the physiological reality from the fantasy threat.
Mother, holding her head in exhaustion, finally delivers the necessary emotional confirmation that overrides the seventh grade authority.
She says, everyone drools on their pillow sometimes. It doesn't mean you're a baby. It's no big deal. And it is not from monsters.
And that emotional validation, coming from the mother, who often provides the emotional truth in this book, provides the necessary intellectual closure. It separates the drool from the monster. The forensic evidence is neutralized.
So despite the drool mystery being solved, Junie B is still left with the social shame from picture day. This is the last remaining emotional vulnerability.
And it is where she finds her true, lasting psychological weapon. The school pictures finally return. Lucille's are predictably gorgeous.
Of course they are. And Mrs. handles Junie B's envelope carefully, handing it over real secret and suggesting she might want to have them taken again.
That subtle adult signaling confirms that the picture is indeed terrible. Junie B sees her face, the wide-open mouth, the sick face, the stink smell look, and her stomach feels sickish inside.
The anxiety shifts entirely. The invisible drool monster is now a manageable threat, but the visible immediate monster of social rejection and embarrassment, represented by the ugly, dumb things that are her pictures, remains potent.
And the humiliation is finalized when Lucille, the ultimate arbiter of social beauty, grabs the pictures and loudly announces, "Eee!" Gross. Junie B looks gross.
And the ensuing laughter from the other kids just cuts Junie B to the core. She hides the pictures and retreats, refusing to speak to her classmates for the rest of the day.
She sits on her bed looking at the pictures, fueled by furious anger at the image itself. She calls them ugly, dumb things.
And this intense shame and anger drive the cognitive breakthrough.
She suddenly realizes that her ugly picture is just as scary as you, monster. This is the moment of cognitive reframing.
She realizes that the thing causing her the most embarrassment, her physical appearance captured in a moment of panic, is also the most powerful weapon she possesses.
She weaponizes her own perceived hideousness. The plan is brilliant in its simplicity. Put the ugly picture under the bed to scare your whole entire pants off.
She takes control of the one visual element that caused her distress and transforms it into an aggressive, defensive shield.
And it's far more effective than Daddy's flashlight check or Grandma's car flattening attempt because it addresses the fear on its own irrational terms.
The monster, being terrified of head chewing, must surely be terrified of this face. It's a perfect, functional psychological solution, overriding logic entirely.
She cuts the pictures apart and shoves them under the bed, proclaiming, "Now my scary face will be down there all the time, and so that monster already got scared away, I bet."
The solution is internal and empowering. She didn't need external denial or physical force. She needed to turn her shame into power.
And when Mother comes home and sees the pictures under the bed, she gasps, "Oh my!" And then she starts to laugh, joining Junie B.
The adult validates the cleverness of the solution, not the reality of the monster. This shared moment of laughter solidifies the reframing.
The picture is no longer a source of shame. It's a source of family humor and defensive power.
And the final piece of the puzzle falls into place. With the picture monster under her bed, Junie B is completely secure. She is no longer worried about subsequent drool spots.
She can now attribute them to Raggedy Ruth, Philip Johnny Bob, or even herself because she accepts that everybody drools on their pillow once in a while because her mother told her that.
The fear is fully decoupled from the forensic evidence, and the source of her shame, the picture, is now her protector. The narrative shows us that sometimes external irrational threats are best handled not by adult logic,
But by an internal, functional, psychological solution that only makes sense within the framework of childhood anxiety.
so to synthesize the key knowledge from this deep dive, the source material provides a clear model. Complex childhood fears, like the invisible drool monster, can't be solved by adult tools.
Right, not by flashlights, logic, stern warnings, or even the physical annihilation of the threat through vacuuming or vehicular homicide.
Instead, the resolution required a radical shift in psychological perception, turning a massive source of public, visible shame, the ugly, dumb school picture, into a source of immense power.
The scary face deterrent. She controls the narrative by making herself the scariest, most aggressive thing in the room.
It's a powerful demonstration of how resilience is often found not in conquering the weakness, but in creatively reframing that weakness as a strength.
Junie B teaches us that coping mechanisms often bypass conventional wisdom, finding functional, if slightly ridiculous, ways to manage the unmanageable.
And what's particularly comforting, or maybe unsettling, is knowing that these childhood anxieties rarely leave us entirely.
That's right. Barbara Park, the author, admitted that even as an adult, she still sometimes teaches herself to leap onto my bed from all corners of my room to avoid the ankle-grabbing hand.
She even felt compelled to qualify that, adding the parenthetical admission.
Okay, fine. It was Saturday night, but if you tell anyone, I'll deny it completely. Even the author of the solution still needs to jump.
So we encourage you to reflect on this deep dive. What are your own invisible drool monsters that can't be solved by simple logic or a flashlight check?
And what creative, perhaps slightly ridiculous coping strategies do you still rely on, consciously or unconsciously, to make sure your feet don't hang over the edge of the bed?
What piece of your own past shame have you managed to shove under your figurative bed to keep the real monsters away?
The world may be complicated, but sometimes the only thing that works is utilizing your scary face to protect yourself.
Until next time, stay curious.